Hi guys, gonna give everyone a chance to start logging on here. I'm gonna give you guys a couple minutes because I hate when I start and then you miss some of the stuff I say. So you can listen to my mariachi music for a minute. I'll explain later. So we're just gonna wait for another minute or two. I see everybody. Hi. Some of my loyal followers. I love seeing you guys every week. I thought about skipping this week, but then I realized this was definitely probably a week I needed to do one of these, especially a funny one. I have done some educational ones in the past, which, as you guys know, I put up on YouTube afterwards in case anybody misses it, but I thought I'd do a fun one. So thank you for joining me. I was hoping to just kind of offer some light and levity during this crazy time. Obviously, you know, we feel so much for our brides and grooms. I actually had a few weddings happening in May that all are in the process of being moved to future dates. But I really feel like I've seen our wedding planning community come together, and I read something that made me think of wedding planners specifically because I know, you know, all of us have the responsibility of trying to help everyone during this time. But it said, do you remember when you watched the Titanic and while the Titanic was going down, the band was still playing? Well, we're the band. So I totally resonated with that because we are all going to get through this together, and it's really important to stress, you know, to people in our industry that we want people to postpone their events if they need to. Not everyone has had to by any means, but you know, just for our industry, we hope people consider postponing instead of canceling. And, you know, I was thinking about it, when you postpone a wedding, you're just postponing a celebration. You're not postponing love. So it's important to remember kind of, you know, the whole point of everything. So you're probably wondering why you logged on and I was playing mariachi music and I'm wearing this. Maybe you're wondering, maybe you're not. It's not very Colorado-y in March, but so I was supposed to be on my honeymoon this week in Cabo. So I definitely, as I'm talking to kind of stressed out brides who are, you know, upset about canceling bachelorette trips and you know, things like that, I certainly feel for you. I did not take a honeymoon after my November wedding. We were actually going to be in Cabo this week and decided to make the decision to stay home. So we really haven't left our house in days. However, we haven't stopped the fun. So we literally wake up every morning and we pretend like we're on vacation. We're still working, obviously. It's even harder because, you know, having to shuffle stuff around. But we just figured we were going to make the best of it. So my very creative husband suggested I play mariachi music and wear something that I would have worn in Cabo. And so I did. And he made me a skinny margarita. So instead of wine for Winedown Wednesday, today I'm drinking margaritas. So hopefully you guys are joining me. So today I thought it'd be fun because I know a lot of you really enjoyed the episode when I talked about all the crazy things that have happened at our weddings over the last 17 years. That I would do another one like that. And of course, I never could run out of stories, right? I can't share 17 years worth of things that have happened in 1 hour. So I made another list of some additional things that have happened. And I also reached out to my wedding planning community. I belong to a wedding planning community on Facebook called Refine for Wedding Planners. There's about 4,000 members, and I reached out to them and I said, hey, you know, let's kind of like all give each other a laugh and talk about things that have happened at our weddings that are funny, or share stories of things that have happened that are maybe mistakes that we've made, because I don't make any mistakes anymore. But when I first got into the industry, I was in my late 20s, and there's no course that you can really take. You just, like I've said in my past lives, you just have to like really screw up a lot in the beginning, and hopefully no one notices, which most of the time they don't, and you learn the lessons, and then you never do that again. So I am not ashamed to share some of the big oops things that I did way early on in my career. And I also had some of my wedding planner friends, actually 68 people got into this conversation, so it was really funny. And I got a good laugh looking at some of the other mistakes, oops moments that my wedding planner friends have made. And they also shared some of their crazy stories of things that have happened at weddings as well. So that's what we're going to talk about today, because I think it'll be fun. If you guys have comments, of course, always comments, questions, please feel free to log on. I'm going to keep my mariachi music on and pretend like I'm in Cabo, and you guys can just sit back and hopefully take your mind off of things and, get a good laugh. So hopefully everybody has their wine or whatever you're having. For those of you that logged on a little late, I was just saying I was supposed to be on my honeymoon this week in Cabo, and I'm not. I'm in Colorado, and so I'm pretending. So I dressed up, and I'm drinking a margarita. And listening to mariachi music. Okay. So I'm not going to say who did these things, because I think that I'll try not to. Probably the ones I did, you'll know I did them, but one of the oops things that happened is the bride and groom were at their ceremony in a Catholic church. They did not have a bridal party. And they always hand us the vows to hold. And of course, right before the ceremony starts is like the most chaotic time. I always say, like, once the ceremony's over, it's like a breather moment. And so we have like all the important things a lot of times, vows, rings, things like that. And I had the vows because typically you'd give it to like the best man or the maid of honor or the officiant. But in this case, it was in a Catholic church and the priest did not want them. And so the ceremony was going on, and I like was walking away to go set something up, and the vows were missing. You know why? Because I had them in my back pocket. So yeah, so that happened. So I got a text that they couldn't find the vows, and so of course I ran back in the church and gave them to the maid of honor. So yeah, that's something. I haven't done that again. I once lost a marriage license and never found it. I'm pretty sure it was like so long ago, and how do you lose a marriage license? Because here's what I'm going to tell you. So at the time, it was years ago, I had this huge SUV because I was like starting a family, and I needed all the room. And I am pretty sure I took the marriage license and I put it like on my dash, of your car. And I'm positive it had to have like slid into the holes of the dash, it's like really thin. And I always wondered like, when I sold my car, like years later, if they like reached down in there and found some random person's marriage license. Oh my God, it was mortifying. My couple was so sweet about it. I was pregnant at the time, so I blame pregnancy brain. And they were so nice because, in all honesty, like, yeah, it's not convenient, but they went and got another marriage license, signed it, and mailed it in. But yeah, that was a doozy. But the worst thing I ever lost, which I ended up finding 6 hours later. Want to take a guess, anyone? Like, what would be the most mortifying thing to lose at someone's wedding? I'll give you like 20 seconds. Okay, fine. You don't want to play my game. The rings. I lost the rings. I didn't really lose them. See, you never really lose anything. You just like are kind of hustling and bustling around, and you like set them somewhere. Yes, Andrea, you got it, the rings. And then you like, and you're so organized that sometimes you're disorganized. So like you put things in really safe places. Like one of my friends was saying that they did a celebrity wedding and they lost the marriage license and couldn't find it and was like freaking out for hours and hours. And he actually ended up finding it in his iPad between the case and the actual iPad, just kind of stuffed right down in there. So we really do put things in safe places. It's just at the time you're like, oh yeah, and you stick it somewhere and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, the rings, like where are they? I was just glad I didn't have to replace the rings because that would have been bad. But I did end up finding them. That was a long time ago. Typically, I will not hold the rings anymore. Usually the best man or maid of honor has to do it. But I was sweating that one for sure. So this was a kind of an oops slash really horrible thing that happened at one of our weddings. So for some of you that have watched in the past, you know that I talked about the couple years that I was like, oh, I'm gonna do flowers, like it's so fun and I think it'll be so easy. And so I did, and it was great, and you know, very stressful. Like I have so much respect for my florists now, and I know why they charge so much. It's so much work. I don't know how they make money. It is so much work. But anyway, Indian wedding, we in Vail, we built this like massive mandap. It was amazing. However, a huge wind came through and blew the mandap over and hit the priest in the head, the Indian priest in the head, knocked him out for like a decent amount of time. I was getting texts like, oh my God, the thing collapsed. I like died. I still have PTSD from that. And I think it was that moment when I'm like, screw this. I do not want to do flowers. Like it's too much stress already. Just, you know, we already have so much to worry about. And then you try to do that. And so, yeah, that was insane. But I did make up for it. I paid for the client's entire after party. And they were like so appreciative of that. And they actually weren't that upset because Indian weddings, they're auspicious. And so apparently right when the wind came through and blew it over was right when the priest was saying something in like a special language about if there's any evil spirits in this area or whatever, they need to leave or something, and then the thing blows over. So apparently there was. But yeah, so I was just glad I came out with no lawsuits on that one. And then I decided I never want to do flowers again. And luckily my bride and groom were so happy with everything. They were so gracious. Like I think I was more upset than they were. And okay, so this was a funny one. This was shared by one of my friends, in my group. And I thought it was hilarious because I love hearing about other people's stories too, because, you know, it's a tough job but very rewarding. And, there's just all kinds of crazy stories that come out of weddings. So this particular planner was doing a wedding at the family's estate. And so when she arrived, she was setting up. We typically set up in like more casual clothing. And then we changed because it's hard running around a wedding in like a pair of heels for 12 hours. So sometimes, depending on the situation, we'll, you know, show up in something, probably yoga pants, and set up and get all gross and dirty, and then we go, you know, get pretty. But this particular bride asked if she could change. Wedding planner asked the bride if she could change. She sent her up to the bedroom, and she went in there to change, and out came the father of the groom out of the shower full on naked. And she was like mortified. He was also the minister. So basically she just saw the minister / father of the groom naked and like ran out of the room, was so mortified. But she said she didn't tell anyone and like didn't tell the bride, which I don't blame her because that's like, oh my gosh. And she said that later on in the evening, the father of the bride came up to her and was like, hi, I think we've met before. I thought that was so funny. So this is probably my biggest oops that I did years ago. It was really idiotic looking back, but so I had this client that had these beautiful vintage skis made, and they were wood and like so beautiful and like all carved, and so they wanted their guests to sign the skis. Well, a lot of times as a planner, we'll put different things out for people to sign, and we're like, well, they don't really get it, so we'll do it first, and then they'll know, like, yeah, like I've had clients have people sign a Bible, circle a Bible verse and sign a Bible, sign a book of these beautiful pictures, and you're like, where do I sign? Like, I don't want to mess it up. Or, like a John Fielder, Colorado, a coffee table book, or, just different things. And sometimes the guests either don't do it, and then I feel bad, they get like 3 signatures. So I started going like, oh, maybe I'll sign first, and then when people walk over to it, they'll get it. So I signed the skis. So you were supposed to sign them in Sharpie. But she failed to mention that she wanted people to sign the bottom, and I was the first person to sign. And for whatever reason, I didn't sign my name. I just signed like, congratulations, and I signed the top of all the beautiful like artwork and stuff. She saw that, didn't know who did it, because all it said was like, congratulations. And she texts me and she's like, some freaking idiot signed the top of the skis. Like, what a moron. Oh my God, I can't believe that. And of course I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe someone would do that. Like, how dumb are they? Yeah, and it was me. And I never told her. But luckily the photographer was the artist of the skis. And she was like, oh, it's going to be fine. Like, I can, sand it out. But oh my God, if I had signed my name, like, congratulations, you're a planner, Heather Allen, like, holy crap. So now if I sign something, I don't put my name, just in case I did it wrong. But yeah, I was glad that she was able to fix them. I literally was like, oh my God, I'm totally ready to buy vintage skis. One thing clients probably don't realize is that we always fix our mistakes, and we always pay for them. And trust me, I have cost myself thousands of dollars in fixing stuff. I remember this one wedding I did years ago. I was like so organized, and so at the rehearsal I brought all the like menus and like escort cards and all the stuff to set up the next day. Well, the cleaning people came through the venue and were cleaning, and they took where I put it and hid it in some random closet, and this was a huge venue. So the next day, luckily, thank God I had time, the next day I can't find it anywhere. Well, I can't have a wedding with no escort car, like there was no seating chart, there was no anything. So I literally like freaked out, contacted the stationer. Her name's Tasha, actually, she's in Colorado, Tasha Designs, and was like, oh my God, like everything's messy, and for some reason I like thought it was my fault. Like I was like, am I hallucinating? I know I brought it, but then I was like, did I lose it? Like, did I forget it? Like, what happened? Anyway, she remade everything for me, and it was like $1,000 that I paid for, but of course I had to, right? I wasn't just gonna tell my bride like, oops, sorry. And guess what? Like 2 days later, somebody opens this cabinet, and there it was, all of the stuff. Yeah, it was crazy. But anyway, yeah, the vintage ski signing with the Sharpie, that was a bad one. My very, very first wedding I ever did, they wanted me to do the audio visual because, when you first get in the industry, you tend to get lower budget weddings, and they can't afford to like bring a vendor in for every single thing. So this particular bride, and me being so new, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do like everything, like anything you want. And so I handled the audio visual, which I literally know nothing about. And so I'm like plugging in like microphones and things, and then I had to like go play the music. They walked down the aisle. I mean, you should have seen me. I was like, like over here, and I forgot to turn the freaking mic on. So then when the guy went up there to talk, the officiant, he was talking, Granted, you could hear, so that was fine, but still they had paid money to have it there and we weren't even using it. And it didn't dawn on anyone like, oh, like the mic's not on, we should probably turn it on. So yep, that's something always and forever. I'll be like, mic check, are you on? Yep, yep, yep. And they are. So yeah. So it wasn't like horrible, and it was my very first wedding. And also at that wedding, the caterers lost the lamb, like 30 orders of lamb. It was like hiding in like a hot box somewhere. And then they're running to the grocery store and buying up all the lamb and like trying to cook it up. It was like chaos. And then they ended up finding the lamb in like some little hot box thing. That was nuts. And then that same wedding, the band introduced the bride and groom as the maid of honor and the best man. So I don't know. Like, I can't control everybody, but I now know the mics need to be on. So this was a funny story that was shared. So a planner was at a wedding, and like the ceremony was going on, and she said she was sitting in the back, like on her phone, like on Facebook, you know, and she went on something that said like, you know, click this button and you'll see who you're gonna marry or something, and like it was like circulating all these names. And she said that when she did it, like this super loud voice came on. It was like, oh, you're gonna marry Jeremy. And then everybody in the ceremony like turned around like, what is going on? And she said she couldn't figure out how to turn her phone off, so she sat on it. I was like, oh my gosh, that is so hilarious. By the way, I see a lot of people logging on kind of late. Just so you know, if you want to start this from the beginning and wonder why I'm wearing this, drinking margaritas and playing mariachi music, I will post this to YouTube and you can start from the beginning. Just, you know, and the YouTube's Table 6 Productions 2020, which I think I want to change the name, because don't you guys feel like 2020 was supposed to be our year? And so far, it sucks. I think it does. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone is in agreement. So now I'm like, okay, 2021 is going to be our year, hopefully. Okay, so, okay, this was a mistake I made years ago. Years ago. Oh my gosh, it must have been 15 years ago, like when I first got into the industry. So I didn't like let my bride proof the wedding invitation. I don't know why. Like, that's so weird. I mean, of course they need to proof the wedding invitation, like it's their wedding. And for some reason I just didn't, and I like designed it on. She was very trusting of me, and so she was like, oh yeah, you take care of it, you know. And now, of course, now I know that, I mean, I proof stuff. Like, I find mistakes on so many things. It's insane. It's actually almost annoying, and I'll like reach out to companies and be like, do you know you have a misspelled word in the third paragraph of your, yeah, I'm that girl. But back then, for whatever reason, I didn't have her proof her invitation, and I spelled the groom's name wrong. Matthew with one T. Oops. So it was like Matthew, you know? I don't know. I guess I didn't know Matthew was spelled with two T's. Like, I just thought it was Matthew, which is kind of funny because my husband's name's Matthew, and so now I know it's spelled with two T's. But anyway, so when the invitation went out, it had the groom's name spelled wrong. I felt so bad. She actually blamed herself, though. She's like, I should have read it. Like, it wasn't your responsibility, da-da-da. And I was like, yeah, right. It actually is. I mean, we know as planners, like, everything's our responsibility. But now I know Matthew is spelled with two T's, and that's why they call people Matt, and it's spelled Matt with two T's. So I got that one done. Okay, so that was a bad one. This actually happened a couple of years ago, and I will say it wasn't my fault, but it always is kind of your fault, but not your fault, you know? You guys can be the judge of this. Like, I always blame myself for everything. Like, the food could be bad, and I'd be like, it's all my fault. But, so this one, they did, so it was a Jewish wedding, and they did what's called a tish and bedekin before the ceremony, which is like this whole ceremonial thing, and the guys get together and break things and drink whiskey. Like, they do that on other days too. And then the girls, like sit around and, dance around and do stuff. And then they bring the groom to the bride and he sees her for the first time, blah, blah, blah. And then the rabbi says a whole bunch of stuff, and then they drink more whiskey, and then they sign the marriage, the ketubah. Well, the artist of the ketubah was like this big time artist, and he was very worried that it, he spent a lot of time on it. He didn't want anything to happen to it. So he took it after they signed it, which I did not see because there was, at least 80 people there. They signed it, and then some other things were happening, and he took the ketubah and he brought it back to his hotel room. Well, the problem with that is that the rabbi likes to read the ketubah at the ceremony. So ceremony is going on. I've got the easel out and everything to hold the ketubah. I got the binder clips in case the wind comes through. I mean, I had everything. I was so prepared. Well, what I wasn't prepared for is that the ketubah never made it to the easel, which was supposed to happen, and I didn't notice at the time. And so the guy went to like turn to the thing, and he was no ketubah, and it was just like, and all of a sudden the mom stands up, Heather! I was like, crap! And then I'm like, where's the ketubah? Like, I can't replace a ketubah. Well, I mean, you could, but like losing the marriage license is way less of a big deal than losing someone's ketubah. So anyway, the artist realized that like, oh crap, he was supposed to bring the ketubah to the ceremony and set it up on the easel. So he ran to his hotel room. Everybody laughed about it, and they did some other things, and no one was upset. I mean, I swear I feel like I have like the greatest clients on the planet for the most part. Like, everyone is just so kind, appreciative, so nice. In fact, like, I had a bride reach out to me today whose wedding was last month, just saying, hey, thinking about you. I'm sure this is a really hard time for you and your brides, and, I hope that you're taking care of yourself and stuff. Like, that is so nice. I love working with people like that. And I just feel so fortunate when I get to work with people like that. So in this particular case, it wasn't a thing. They didn't bring it up again, but of course Heather, it's like, I don't know where it is. Okay, so a lot of my fellow planners had this same story. So apparently we're all a bunch of idiots when we got into the industry. And, a lot of planners have never been married before. And I would say that if you have been married and then you become a planner, you at least have you can at least relate to the bride being like, stressed or, all the different emotions that they have. You can relate because you've been there. But this one, a lot of my planner friends have made this mistake, and I know I did. And it was on a huge wedding years ago, and I fixed it, but we threw the wedding cake away. Okay, so I'm just thinking, like, are my skinny little bride's gonna take like 900 slices of wedding cake home? She just doesn't even seem like she would care. And so then everyone eats the wedding cake. The bride and groom got the wedding cake and the little topper thing, we've all thrown the topper away before. The little top cake you freeze for a year. Nobody does that anymore anyway. Most bakers will make you a new cake. But we've all done that at least once. Or the venue's done it, and we've been like in dumpsters looking for the cake. But what happened was there was all this leftover cake, and apparently this family wanted it, and the venue threw it all away. That's why we ask now, do you want to save the cake? Do you want to save this? Do you want that? Do you want all the food at the end of the night that's left over? Like, just tell us, what do you want to save? Do you want all the flowers? Because obviously when you get the text the next day asking for it and you're like, your bouquet? Yeah. That's happened too. We've all thrown the bouquet away by accident. Luckily, a few times I've had to say, you know what? Actually, that particular florist makes a new bouquet for you so that you can like have it and it's all fresh and nice. And then the bride's like, oh, that's so sweet. When really I'm like, grab the bouquet. So, of course, the first thing I grab, bouquet. We always save that. Now I save everything. I mean, I save so much stuff. They probably go through their crap and they're like, what is this? Why did she save this particular thing? But it's just better to let them decide if they want to keep it or not than have it be gone. So anyway, the cake thing. So they wanted the cake. And I was like, oh, so I didn't want the venue to get in trouble, right? Because they refer me and stuff, and I didn't want to throw them under the bus. We try not to do that to each other. We try to be like, hey, we got to fix this. So I said, oh, let me call the venue and I'll get the cake. Well, I called the venue, and of course they're like, no, we threw it all away. And they knew, like they saw the cake when they left, so they knew that there was like lots more cake. So another one of those expensive freaking $1,000 things I had to pay for. I called the baker. I'm like, I need you to bake me a new cake, design it like it was, and then chop some of it up and then give it half of it to me. Right? Because I had to make it look real. I couldn't deliver them a whole full wedding cake. So yeah, I had to do that one. So cake, we always save the cake. I once, and this was actually like a collective thing, and we're all a bunch of idiots at this time. Again, first got into the industry. The bride walked down the aisle without her bouquet. Now, in my defense, she didn't have a bridal party, and the photographer had taken at least an hour and a half of photos with her with no bouquet the entire time. She left it like in her getting ready room, never had it. He never noticed, like, hey, don't you have a bouquet? Or like, where's your bouquet? Or do you want your bouquet in your photos? And so then they're done with photos. I line them up. I send her down the aisle, no bouquet. And like, I notice it right then. Okay, well, too late. So of course I run, go look for her bouquet, and then I bring it back, and then I make sure she gets it, and she walks back up the aisle. Again, one of those things, she could have cared less. I mean, she didn't even have a bridal party. She could have cared less about it. I cared. So now I'm always like lecturing like all the bridesmaids at the rehearsal. I'm like, do not let her leave the hotel room without her bouquet. Do not let me see you lining up for the ceremony without your bouquets. So it's because of all these lessons we've learned, you know, and so our brides now, like, they benefit from all the stuff that we learned on the people 20 years ago when we like kind of didn't really know what we were doing. This was a funny one. I just laughed because I'm like, that's so something you would do when you first get in the industry. This one planner on that forum that I was on that I was telling you about earlier, she said that at her very first wedding, she sent the flower girl down first, which I just laughed so hard because, I mean, thankfully it wasn't the bride, right? What if you're like, oh, line up, okay, the bride goes first. So she sent the flower girl down first, and I guess the priest was like, what are you doing? And so she learned that lesson. Flower girl doesn't go first. Technically, flower girl goes before the bride. Okay. And so I thought that was kind of hilarious. And then in that same wedding, that same story, her clients did it's called a unity cross. And so you guys have seen unity candles and, unity wine, unity sand, all that type of stuff. And this particular girl did this unity cross. So it's like a puzzle. It's basically like a little puzzle thing, and you put it all together and then it becomes a cross. Well, she set it up like already. Like, she put the puzzle together. So then when the officiant was like, okay, and so now, Joe and Jan are going to take the first piece and da-da-da. It was already all put together. And I was just like, I just can imagine her like watching going, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. But like, who would think you'd put a puzzle, right? So I felt for her. We had fun. Oh my gosh, all these planners were like, this is so great. I needed this diversion. I am laughing so hard. I'm glad to see I'm not the only one in this boat. I've beat myself up for mistakes I made like 25 years ago, and people are like, oh my gosh, I made that same mistake. So it was really fun, actually, kind of a fun little activity, but it was just fun for me to see too, like, that other people have done some kind of funny things, learning this industry. So I actually had this happen not too long ago, and a few of my fellow planners have had this happen as well. So our brides have fun at their weddings. They usually drink too much, and then they take their shoes off. And it's usually an expensive pair of shoes, you know, Manolos or Louboutins or I know I'm missing some others. Badgley Mishka. So anyway, they take their shoes off and they don't know where the heck they put them. And then, of course, guess who gets the call the next day looking for the shoes? Yep, it's me. Because I am the keeper of everything. So, I wasn't sure where the shoes were because she changed into another pair of shoes. And then apparently what happened is she gave the shoes to her maid of honor, and then her maid of honor hid them under her seat in like some bag. And so when we go like to save like the menu card, the place card, this, that, and everything else, we are always looking around for stuff to make sure that, you know, the bouquet, the cake. And so I guess what happened is the maid of honor took them. The bride didn't remember that she did this. The next day, literally, we're suing the hotel. One of the servers stole my shoes. I mean, it was just this whole ordeal. And I was just like, I don't think so. I really don't think that's what happened. And long story short, she ended up finding the shoes. Didn't apologize to anyone. No one on the hotel staff didn't, you know, say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for accusing your staff of stealing my shoes and threatening a lawsuit. But just made sure everyone knew that they found the shoes. Apparently some of my other wedding planner friends have had this happen, but they have had brides accuse them of stealing their shoes. I actually had a bride many years ago who accused my assistant because at this particular wedding I left at a certain point, and then my assistant stayed and till the end. And this particular bride just couldn't understand why there weren't more gifts. And so she accused my assistant of taking all of them. It's like, what? Like, have you lost your mind? So then I had to track down the photographer. She's like, the photographer had to have taken a picture of the gift table. So I had to track down the photographer. I'm like, did you take pictures of the gift table? Which is kind of like a random thing to take pictures of. And so took pictures. I'm like, I need all the pictures of the gift table. She's like, I mean, I took like one, but it was like before there were gifts, right? It was just for like the cute little signs and boxes and things. And so anyway, long story short, I got to the point where I was like, this is kind of crazy. And like, she definitely did not steal the gifts. I can tell you that, or the money or the cards or the card box or any of that. And so I offered to reach out to all her guests, which this would have been way awkward, but I was like, I kind of wanted her to see, like, maybe just people, I mean, people have a year to send you a gift, and this was a destination wedding, and you saw my other Instagram live. I say, don't show up with all those gifts. You only show up with the cards and the money. So maybe they were going to send the gift later. Like, we're still getting gifts from our November wedding. So people have time. So anyway, I just was like, well, do you want me to reach out to all your guests and be like, hey, did you bring a gift? Just to kind of show like I want to help you here. But, and so anyway, long story short, they ended up finding out that a lot of people did not bring gifts. There were only cards, 2 gifts, and then they got a whole bunch of gifts later on. And they actually were very apologetic. Oh, Erin's reminding me of a story. Yes, we had one of our brides who had a wedding in Wyoming on a ranch and wore like Stuart Weitzman's to one of the events. She wore Chloe flats that were like probably $1,000, and it was like raining and cold, like in the mud. I know. Erin saying that it broke her heart when she saw those expensive shoes getting ruined. Anyway, I can assure you, your planner does not want your shoes or your gifts or your money or your cards. At least I can speak for myself and most of the people that I associate with. Okay, let's see some of the others. The ring thing again. So it wasn't just me. The story I shared earlier about the rings. Another planner had the rings. They didn't have a bridal party. Had the rings. She gave the little bag of the rings to the groom. The groom only grabbed his ring out, thinking that, oh, she's giving me my ring and she's giving her ring. Nope. So he lost the bag. The ceremony's going on, and he pulls his phone out mid-ceremony. Okay, Catholic ceremony in a church. Pulls the phone out and starts texting the wedding planner, like, hey, do you know where her ring is? And I was like, people must be like, what is he doing? So yeah, he started texting her, and she's like, yeah, they were in the little bag I gave you. Don't you have the little bag? And he's like, no, I only thought mine was in there. And she's like, well, do you know where the bag is? And so she said that she and her assistant ran back to the shuttle and were like looking everywhere for the rings. They did end up finding it, but it was a little late, so they just used like little fake rings during the ceremony. But yeah, those rings, I mean, they are like the death of us. We do not want to be the ring holder. It's too much responsibility. Okay, so this was a funny one. I just have a couple of more, and then if you guys have anything you want to ask or share, I'm just so happy we got to do this. Pretend we're in Mexico, listen to mariachi music, dress like we're in Mexico, drink margaritas. For those of you that logged on late or are still logging on, because I see people still logging on, I'm going to post this on my YouTube channel at Table 6 Productions 2020. You can watch it from the beginning, figure out why I'm dressed this way, why I'm drinking margaritas and little glasses with chihuahuas on them and stuff, and hear all my funny stories, but and my other fellow planner friends. So this is one of those good Colorado wedding stories. So one of my fellow planner friends here had a wedding where the bridal party after the ceremony, the maid of honor thought it'd be really fun if they all did edibles, like ceremonial edibles. And so she had bought them for all the bridal party, who were all from out of town, probably hadn't done them before. We have so many of these stories. I could do a full-on hour of the drugs and the stuff that has happened at my weddings, just full-on like drugs. And I know some of you that have watched in the past have heard all the crazy stories with that. But she passed them out. The bride did it, all the bridal party. And apparently they took too much. And so this just made me laugh because I was thinking about how hilarious it would be to actually see this, like witness this. But this part isn't funny. This makes me sad. It was apparently like a really lavish wedding too. The bride ended up having to leave the wedding. She like tweaked out and was like vomiting and stuff. So she was gone. But the maid of honor who bought all the edibles for the bridal party hid under a table for 2 hours. I mean, could you imagine? I was just imagining myself. I look under tables a lot for stuff, or I like hide things under there. Like, oh, I need this box later. When I box everything up, I'm gonna hide it under this table. And you like lift up the thing, and like there's the maid of honor under the table because she took too many edibles. Like, no, it's just too funny. I just was like, oh my gosh. And that's why I'm just like, you know, you should probably save that kind of stuff for another day, because I mean, you guys remember the story I told you, those of you that watched this one, about one of my photographer friends in Telluride was at a wedding, and apparently the groomsmen thought it would be cool to put acid in a bunch of water bottles, and the wedding planner drank one. Yeah. And like tripped for like the next 12 hours. Like, I don't even know what I would do. Like, what? That's why we always have like multiple assistants, because then they can, you know, so I mean, they didn't drink the water too, but that's why we always have lots of, you know, support. But I mean, I was just like, oh my gosh, like the no drugs at the weddings. That just stick to the wine and stuff. It's way safer. Okay, so a couple more. So I had this really sweet bride. Oh my gosh, her name was Jenny. I even remember her because she's so sweet. And years ago, I wanted to save her money. And so I offered to drive her wedding cake to Vail. And so I picked the wedding cake up, and it was like a 3-tiered cake. And I got about exit 170 something, which I think Vail's like 176. So I was close. I was getting close. And it was July. And if you've ever driven to Vail, it's very windy and da-da-da. So it's hot, it's windy, you know. Okay, you know where this is going. So I literally, all of a sudden, I like look in my rearview mirror and I'm like, hold on a second. Why does it look like cake's over here and over here? Like that? Okay. So I'm like, and then I'm like, oh, I'm sure it's fine. It's just like a weird like reflection illusion thing. Well, then I'm like smelling like intense smells of buttercream frosting. And I'm like, wait, like, no. So I pull over, open the thing, and sure enough, the second layer of the cake just slid right out. Just right out. It was everywhere. And I was by myself. It was a Thursday. I was driving it up. I was by myself and literally I had to go like, what are you doing? Because my instant reaction was I started licking the icing off of the inside of my car. I was literally like trying to clean it or something. I don't know. I was like panicking apparently. And I'm just like licking the icing, like licking like everything in the back of my trunk. And I was like, oh my God, like what are you going to do? So luckily again, we as planners fix things, even if it costs us money. And so luckily I had 2 days, right? Because it was a Saturday wedding, so I had 2 days to figure this out. Of course, I wasn't going to tell the bride. I called my bakery. They were leaving town, like at some god-awful hour the next day, but they went into their bakery. This is why I'm so loyal to my vendors, because if you just kind of like one-off people and you don't build like a really loyal relationship and you need like a massive favor, it's so much easier to ask the people that you like give tons of business to, you've worked with them over and over and over again. And so this particular bake shop I had, and she went in at 2 o'clock in the morning, made me a new cake, and then left town. And then my lighting guy, Scott, you guys know Scott Hiddleman, a lot of you in the wedding industry, I called him and he went and picked up the cake, came up a day early, picked up the cake, and drove it to me. And so the bride never knew. And the funniest part of it all, I mean, it's not really funny because it was actually kind of traumatic at the time and I had to pay for the freaking cake, was when the florist showed up. I mean, I've never seen more roses on a cake in my life. I literally could have taken the original cake, like kind of like squished it back together and then just doused it in flowers, and then they take it in the back and cut it up and nobody would have ever known. But anyway, yeah, the cake thing. Cake, rings, marriage licenses. Ooh. Okay, so 2 more. And then I'll see if I can think of any others. I was trying to write down, I actually wrote my girls in Florida and I'm like, okay, share your story, share your oops moments, share your mistakes. And they had like a couple funny ones. Actually, one of them was, you know, being in Florida, they do sand ceremonies a lot. So basically you take sand and you pour and you kind of layer. And one of my planners that works on my team in Florida, after they did it, it was like a family thing and whatever. Anyway, she went to back it up and she spilled it all. And that's not easy to clean up. Like there's sand like everywhere, and then what do you do? So yeah, that was a funny one. Okay, so 2 more. And then again, thank you guys for joining me. And if you want to go rewatch this or watch it from the beginning, if you want the whole hour of all the funny stories and mistakes we've made along the way, you can find this episode probably in the next 30 minutes. We'll have it up on my YouTube channel at Table 6 Productions 2020. And if you're super bored because we're all quarantined, all my episodes are there and you could just sit there with your wine and just, you know, watch away and learn stuff. Some of the things you actually learn things. Some of them are just more for fun. So this is a story that one of my other planner friends shared with me that I'm going to share with you because I think it's hilarious. It's not hilarious if it's happening to the bride and groom, but just as a planner, seeing it, you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that happened. Because we always want our brides and grooms to be happy. But apparently the groom, and this is just a no-no, The groom and the groomsmen pulled like a hangover, went out the night before, drank way too much, like, total debauchery. And then 4 of the 6 groomsmen got arrested. And they did not let them out of jail till Monday. And the wedding was Saturday. And this happened on Friday. So the best part about the story is the wedding planner found 4 other dudes to fill in as groomsmen, wear these guys' suits, and they never told the bride. And so the bride was like about to walk down the aisle, and she's looking at the, like, who are those guys? They didn't want to upset her, which I totally respect, but I do think looking back, you have like 4 fill-in groomsmen because the other 4 got arrested, and you're kind of like, wait a second, I don't know that guy. Who's that guy? He wasn't at the rehearsal yesterday. And then the last one is, and I've done this too, and I've actually done it to parents' cars. So we always get keys to the parents' car if they're like at an offsite venue. So that we can load up the gifts and all the stuff, and we want to put it in a safe spot, and it just kind of depends on, each wedding is different, but I've lost the parents' keys for hours, and like frantically looking everywhere. It's always like you're always on the move, and then you have something, and then you like set it down in a really logical spot, and then you go take care of this thing, and then a few more things happen, and then before you know it, you're like, crap, where are the freaking keys to the dad's car? And then the getaway car. I haven't done this, although kind of cute, funny story. So Missy Franklin, I had the pleasure of doing her wedding this past September. If you don't know her, she's a Olympic gold medalist swimmer and like the nicest person that's ever lived. And I know some of the people watching this did her wedding as well, and they would agree. But anyway, she was at an auction like 2 weeks before her wedding, and her parents bid on a Maserati, not like as a gift, but kind of like, hey, you can borrow this Maserati for a week. And so they won, and they were like, oh my gosh, we have this Maserati, we want to go back to our hotel in it. And I was like thinking, well, you two aren't driving, like no one's that's drinking. That is not the way to start off your marriage, right? Like get pulled over, get a DUI and arrested, like driving back to your hotel. So they didn't have anyone to drive, so I volunteered, and so I got to drive them to, back to their hotel, which I was happy to do, and it was hilarious, and we had fun and whatever. However, if you've never driven a Maserati, like I couldn't figure out how to do anything, like turn the thing on. It was like, eye recognition or something. I couldn't figure out how to open the door. I couldn't get their doors open. I didn't know how to use the key thing, like the music. I mean, this thing was so confusing. I needed like a total crash course in it. Luckily, they were very gracious, and they had been driving it like the previous days before. So the groom was like, oh, let me help you. And so he like pushed all the buttons and did all the things. And it was kind of funny because I was driving like super safe, like I was going the speed limit and like, and he's like, come on, Heather, like push the pedal down. And so I did. And he's like, yeah. So it was kind of fun. But the keys did go missing for just a bit. It wasn't like hours. It was like an hour. And then I finally found them, and we were good to go. So that is it. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much for joining me. And again, hopefully like you guys were able to have some laughs. I have a ton of new content. That's why I took a little break for a couple weeks. I wanted to come up with some new stuff, fun stuff, funny stuff. Things that I know people watch because they want to learn things too. So I'll go back to that as well. But I just thought in light of what's going on in the world, it would be fun just to, grab a drink. We're all quarantined. Last night, my husband made me a martini and called it the quarantini. So we're trying to have some levity over here. And so I just wanted to offer that as well. And obviously, so many industries are being affected, but specifically the event industry is getting super crushed. So we'll all get through it together as we always do. Hopefully you guys will join me next week. And like I said, if you get super bored or like want to kill your children because you're locked up with them for like the whole rest of the month, like we all are, school's been canceled. Pretty sure it's going to be canceled for the rest of the year. I don't even know how to teach core math. I literally saw a piece of paper that was like here from a teacher that was like 72 minus 27, and it literally had like all the steps how to do it. I'm like, carry the 1 and reduce, there's your number. So I'm worried about trying to homeschool my kids next week. We'll see how that goes. But it's their spring break, so we're gonna let them like see what that's like, not going on lavish trips, because I don't remember doing that as a kid. But thank you guys so much for joining me. I will be back next week. I'm going to be back actually for, a very long time. I'm just wanted to take that small little break to, kind of brainstorm a little and come up with some more content. And thank you to all my loyal watchers that I always see you log on. I'm like, if there's only 2 people and they get on every week, it's so worth it to me. But as I said before, I will put this episode up on my YouTube channel, Table 6 Productions 2020. It's about an hour long, so depending on when you logged on, you will see that. And if you want to be entertained or just, you're super bored and want to learn about wedding budgets, and knock yourself out, there's plenty of content to watch. And so I'll see you guys next week, and thank you so much. Stay healthy, and I'm going to pretend I'm still in Cabo with my mariachi music. For those of you that logged on late, I was supposed to be in Cabo on my honeymoon this week, but I canceled. So instead I'm wearing this festive shirt, listening to mariachi music, and drinking a skinny margarita. Oh, and just side note, I saw that my dad was watching. Hi, Dad. He's been in the hospital for the last 3 weeks. We've been very worried about him. He's been through a lot in ICU, and I'm so glad that he was watching. And that means that he's getting better, and hopefully you got a good laugh, Dad. But actually the hospital is like a kind of a safe place to be right now, like from a quarantine perspective. So anyway, hope you guys have fun. Love you. Bye.